There are some of you listening right now who shouldn't even be here. By all natural accounts, you should have lost your mind, given up, walked away, or died in that storm. The enemy didn't just attack your life. He came for your voice, your identity, your destiny. And yet you're still here, breathing, standing, believing. And that alone is proof of a God who interrupts the grave, who reverses the sentence, who rewrites the ending. Because what tried to kill you didn't win. In fact, God is about to flip the very thing that tried to silence you into a message that shakes hell. Your survival wasn't just for you. It was so your story could preach louder than your pain ever screamed. There are moments in every believer's life when confusion sets in and faith begins to shake. It's during these seasons that we look at our lives and say, God, what happened? I was on track. I was doing what you called me to do. How did everything fall apart? You might have faced a relationship that failed, a financial door that slammed shut, a sickness that drained your strength, or a betrayal that broke your heart. And in those moments, it feels like you've been knocked off the path. But here's the truth. God can use even that. What you thought was a setback may have been God's divine setup. The delay wasn't a denial. It was God buying time to rearrange things behind the scenes. He doesn't need a perfect story to write a glorious ending. All he needs is a surrendered life. Even your worst day, your biggest failure, and your most painful season can become part of your destiny if you'll place it back in the hands of the Master. Think about Joseph. Sold by his brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned for years. On the surface, it looked like everything was going wrong. But behind the scenes, God was preparing a throne in Egypt. What seemed like a pit was actually the path. God was getting Joseph to a place where he could preserve an entire nation. Joseph didn't realize it at the time, but every betrayal was pushing him closer to purpose. The same is true for you. Some of you are sitting in a place where all you see are the broken pieces. You don't see the pattern yet. You don't understand the plan, but God does. He's the kind of God who will let you be thrown overboard so he can teach you to walk on water. He'll allow the fire not to burn you, but to purify you. He'll let you get buried like a seed, not to end you, but to bring forth new life. Don't be fooled by how things look right now. Just because it feels like you're in a valley doesn't mean God's hand has left you. Just because you're in a dry place doesn't mean there's no oil. God does some of his greatest work in the places we'd rather skip. In fact, if you look back over your life, some of your greatest growth didn't happen on the mountaintop. It happened in the cave, in the prison, in the dark nights when all you had was his presence and a promise. That addiction you beat, God can use even that to minister to someone still struggling. That marriage that failed, God can use even that to speak life into someone ready to give up. That season of depression, God can use even that to show others how he lifts the lowly. Don't underestimate the power of your scars. Jesus didn't hide his when he rose from the dead. He showed them to Thomas to prove the victory. You're not behind. You're not too late. You didn't miss it. Sometimes God has to let what you built fall apart so he can build what he intended all along. You may have built it out of fear, insecurity, or flesh, and God, in his mercy, allowed it to be shaken. Not to punish you, but to position you. Because what's built by your own hands may not be able to hold what he's about to pour out. Some people will try to disqualify you based on your past. But man doesn't get the final say. God does. He delights in using the unlikely. He chose a stuttering Moses, a rejected David, a fearful Gideon, and a persecuting Paul. He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. If God only used perfect people, no one would be used. He can use the mess. He can use the loss. He can use the silence. He can use the season where no one saw you, no one affirmed you, and no one supported you. Because God doesn't need the applause of people to anoint a person. He doesn't need a spotlight to raise someone up. He does his best work in hidden places with surrendered hearts. So don't despise your journey. Don't curse the chapter you're in. That thing that made you cry. That season that made you question everything. That betrayal that nearly broke you. God is gathering it all. He's weaving it into your calling. And one day, what the enemy meant for evil, you'll see how God used it for good. There are battles you never signed up for, wounds you didn't ask for, and scars you didn't see coming. Some of you have walked through fire, not because of disobedience, but because of calling. You've been wounded by people you trusted, by systems that were supposed to protect you, and even by churches that should have healed you. But what the enemy doesn't want you to know is this: those wounds are not the end of you. They are the beginning of something dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. God is not just going to heal you. He's going to weaponize you. Pain has a strange way of making warriors. The devil tried to silence you through the wound, but instead, God is going to amplify your voice through it. The enemy wanted you to bleed out, but God is about to make you bleed purpose. You're not just a survivor. You are becoming a spiritual weapon forged in the fire of affliction. Look at the life of David. Before he ever held a crown, he held a slingshot. But before the slingshot, he had the wound of rejection, left out in the field, forgotten when the prophet came to anoint a king. That rejection didn't disqualify him. It prepared him. It made him tough in hidden places. So when a Goliath showed up, David wasn't intimidated. The wound had turned him into a weapon. What made others cry made him fight. The same thing is happening in your life. You were wounded, yes, but now you're dangerous. Because pain awakens what comfort would have kept dormant. What should have broken you is going to build your voice, your calling, and your anointing. You are not just going to be healed. You are going to heal others. God is turning your scars into swords. When Jesus rose from the grave, he didn't come back hiding his wounds. No, he said to Thomas, "Put your hand in my side." Why? Because the proof of his victory was in his wound. And for you, too. The thing you thought disqualified you is the thing that proves you're anointed. The wound proves you've been through something and didn't die in it. It proves you carry something deeper than a title or platform. You carry fire that came from the furnace. Some of you have been through trauma that nobody knows about. You smile in public and bleed in private, but God has seen it all, and he's been collecting those tears like oil. In fact, the greater the pain, the greater the power he's about to release through you. That's why you feel like you've been under attack, because the enemy sees what's coming out of your pain. Let me tell you something. You are the devil's worst nightmare when you stop hiding your wounds and start walking in your authority. The enemy thought that if he hit you hard enough, you'd sit down and shut up. But instead, you're rising up with a roar. You're not coming out of this weak. You're coming out wise. You're not coming out bitter. You're coming out burning with revival. Every tear was training. Every betrayal was boot camp. Every delay was preparation. And now you've been forged in the fire like steel. You're not soft anymore. You don't cry the same way. You don't pray the same way. You don't worship the same way. Why? Because pain has taught you to war. Your warfare is now your worship. Your lament is now your language of breakthrough. There is a generation rising up that won't be known by perfect stories, but by scarred testimonies. They won't be polished. They'll be powerful. They won't be rehearsed. They'll be real. Because God is done with performances. He's looking for people with wounds who didn't give up. People who are ready to be dangerous with destiny. You may still feel the sting of what was done to you, but don't let it keep you down. That pain has a purpose. That season has weight. You're not weak for being wounded. In fact, you're a candidate for supernatural use. The kingdom doesn't run on polished resumes. It runs on surrendered vessels. And the truth is, the most dangerous weapon in the hand of God is a person who's been wounded, healed, and still said, "Wise, that's you." Heaven sees it. Hell fears it. Because when God turns your pain into power, there's no limit to how far he'll take you and no devil that can stop you. You thought you were lost. You thought you missed your moment. You thought the road you were on had collapsed and the promise had passed you by. But here's what heaven wants you to know. What felt like a detour was divine deliverance. What looked like a delay wasn't God saying, no. It was him saying, not like that. Sometimes the path to destiny doesn't look like progress. It looks like wandering. It looks like silence. It looks like doors closing. It looks like being stuck in a season you didn't pray for. But God is not slow. He's not distracted. He's not absent. He's strategic. He hides deliverance inside delay. He hides favor inside frustration. He hides purpose inside what people call failure. The children of Israel were delivered out of Egypt, and you'd think that if God parted the Red Sea, surely he could clear a straight path to Canaan. But what does he do? He leads them in circles. He brings them into the wilderness. Why? Because he had to deliver them from Egypt and also deliver Egypt out of them. If he had taken them straight in, they would have entered with slave mindsets, insecure hearts, and shallow faith. The detour wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You've been praying for breakthrough, and God has heard you. But instead of rushing you to the promise, he's readying you to carry it. The delay is not denial. It's divine design. God is weaving something in you that can't be built in comfort. It's built in silence, in stillness, in trust. When he delays you, it's because what's on the other side requires more than what you currently carry. So he grows your capacity while you wait. Detours are heaven's secret routes. They confuse the enemy. Pharaoh was tracking Israel, but the moment they went the long way, the enemy lost their scent. Don't you see? The route that made no sense to you actually caused confusion in the camp of hell. The enemy built traps for where he thought you'd go next, but God rerouted you to protect you. That's deliverance in disguise. Look at Joseph. He saw the dream. He didn't see the detour. From favored son to pit, from pit to Potiphar's house, from house to prison. Every stage looked like a setback. But when the time came, Pharaoh pulled him out and said, I need you in the palace. Joseph could have been bitter. He could have questioned everything. But he understood something powerful. God was with him the whole time. What looked like delay was God moving him piece by piece into position. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're in the pit. Maybe you're in the prison. Maybe everyone else got promoted and you feel forgotten. But God sees you. He hasn't abandoned the promise. He's preserving the promise. He knows exactly where you are. And he's the one who put the brakes on, not because you weren't ready for the promise, but because the promise wasn't ready for you. You're not stuck. You're stationed. And when the cloud moves, you'll move. When the trumpet sounds, you'll step into it. But don't despise the detour, because what you call delay, God calls development. He's forming oil in your crushing. He's producing wine through your pressing. He's building endurance in your waiting. Sometimes the longer road is the stronger road. Fast breakthroughs can lead to shallow roots, but God is digging deep in you. He's not building a one-time miracle. He's building a sustained movement through you. And movements require maturity. They require patience. They require hearts that won't panic when the road shifts. You're going to look back and thank God for the delay. Thank him for the no. Thank him for the unanswered prayers. Because what he saved you from, you'll never fully understand this side of eternity. Some doors didn't open because what was behind them wasn't from him. Some people walked away because they couldn't go where he was taking you. Some timelines failed because they were never his to begin with. And all of it, the detours, the delays, the disappointments, are working for your deliverance. They're aligning you with heaven's schedule, because when you get there, when the door opens, when the breakthrough finally breaks through, you'll see it clearly. It had to happen like this. It couldn't have happened any sooner. It couldn't have come any other way. The detour was never the end. It was always the deliverance. There are moments in life when you look around and nothing makes sense. You're not where you thought you'd be. The doors you prayed would open are still closed. The path you mapped out in faith seems to have twisted into something unfamiliar. And in that place, between promise and fulfillment, it's easy to believe that something has gone wrong. But I've come to tell you today, God hasn't failed you. The detour you're on is not a mistake. It's the very path that's leading you into your deliverance. God doesn't always move in straight lines. He's not obligated to follow the timeline you expected. His ways are higher and his methods are mysterious. What looks like a delay to you is often a redirection. What feels like confusion is actually protection. While you're praying for the shortest distance between where you are and where you want to be, God is preparing something deeper. He's not just trying to get you there. He's trying to make sure you're ready when you arrive. Look at the Israelites. They cried out for freedom, and God delivered them. But he didn't take them through the nearest path to Canaan. The word says God led them around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Why? Because if they had faced war too early, they would have turned back to Egypt. The long way wasn't punishment. It was preservation. The wilderness was God's strategy to shape them into a people who could carry the promise. That same strategy is at work in your life. The business that didn't launch, the job that didn't last, the relationship that didn't work. These aren't random failures. They are divine reroutes. God saw what was coming and said, I'll take you a different way, a safer way, a wiser way. And because you didn't see what he saw, you felt lost. But in truth, you were being led. You see, the detour often feels like death to your plans. It tests your faith. It confronts your control. But the detour is where your roots grow deep. It's where your ears tune into his voice. It's where your dependence shifts from strategy to surrender. If God had allowed you to rush into the promise, you would have entered without the spiritual maturity to sustain it. But in the delay, he's been developing you. Think about Jesus. After his baptism, the Spirit didn't lead him straight to the crowds or the miracles. The Bible says the Spirit led him into the wilderness. It was there, alone, hungry, and under attack, that Jesus defeated temptation and declared truth. The wilderness was a detour, but it was also a proving ground. It was the place where the Son of God confronted the devil and emerged in power. What looked like a delay was actually the beginning of dominion. And maybe that's exactly what's happening in your life right now. You've been hidden. You've been quiet. You've been waiting, wondering if God forgot. But he hasn't forgotten you. He's been forming you. The stage you want to stand on, he's preparing you to stand under. The weight you've been called to carry, he's strengthening your shoulders to hold it. He's not just preparing a place for you. He's preparing you for that place. Don't misinterpret delay as rejection. Don't confuse the detour with defeat. God is the master of divine interruptions. He will shut down one path to open up another that protects your purpose. He will hold you in a season longer than you expected because he's doing something eternal in you. What you call late, he calls right on time. The truth is, you would have settled if he answered you too soon. You would have compromised if he gave it to you before your character could carry it. That heartbreak you didn't understand, it was deliverance. That missed opportunity, it was mercy. That closed door, it was God's hand keeping you from a storm you couldn't see. He's not trying to frustrate you. He's trying to free you from depending on what you can predict. Because faith doesn't grow on paved highways. It grows in the wilderness, in the silence, in the reroutes that force you to trust him, not just for outcomes, but for direction. And one day soon, you'll look back and realize the detour wasn't wasted. The path you didn't plan led you to a promise you didn't expect. The thing that felt like a delay became the exact thing that delivered you into purpose, into peace, and into the center of his will. There are seasons in life when it feels like everything has gone silent. The phone stops ringing. The opportunities dry up. The spotlight fades. The dreams you once carried with fire begin to collect dust. You start to wonder if what God spoke over you is real or just a moment of emotion. But let me remind you of a truth the enemy never wanted you to discover. You were buried, not forgotten. Burial and abandonment may look the same from the outside, but they are not the same in the hands of God. When man buries something, it's because it's dead and done. When God allows something to be buried, it's because resurrection is coming. You're not buried to be forgotten. You're buried to be planted. The silence isn't punishment. The stillness isn't failure. It's the soil covering the seed that's about to break forth. Look at Joseph again. God gave him dreams of influence, leadership, and divine positioning. But right after that, everything fell apart. He was thrown in a pit, sold as a slave, locked in a prison. He was buried by betrayal, buried by false accusation, buried by time. But he wasn't forgotten. Heaven still had him on the schedule. When the moment was right, when Pharaoh had a dream no one could interpret, God called Joseph out of the ground and into the palace. You may feel like you're in a tomb, but it's really a womb. It's not the end. It's the beginning of something being formed in the dark. Just because no one sees it yet doesn't mean God has forgotten it. He does his deepest work in hidden places. Roots grow underground before fruit ever appears above the surface. And some of you are deeper in God than you've ever been, even though it looks like nothing is moving. You've been praying, fasting, prophesying, and still feel like you're stuck in the dirt. But let me tell you, the dirt doesn't stop the destiny. In fact, it's part of the process. God allows his promises to go through seasons of death so that when they resurrect, no man can take credit for what only God could do. Jesus himself experienced this. He was crucified in public but buried in private. For 3 days, it looked like hope had died, but God hadn't forgotten. On the third day, resurrection power hit that borrowed tomb and everything shifted. The stone wasn't rolled away to let Jesus out. It was rolled away to let us see what had already happened. What looked like the end was the beginning of redemption for the world. And the same power that raised Christ from the dead is working in your life. It's working on those dead promises. It's breathing on your silent season. It's stirring something under the surface that's getting ready to burst out in full bloom. Don't lose heart in the grave. Because your God is a resurrection God. Some of you have buried dreams, buried callings, buried gifts. Life pushed them underground. People told you it was too late. Circumstances convinced you that time had passed you by. But God is calling those things back to life. The anointing never left. The fire never truly died. It was just covered. It was just protected for an appointed time. You haven't been overlooked. You've been hidden on purpose. God didn't forget about you. He was reserving you. Because what he's placed inside of you wasn't for last season. It's for this one. You had to be buried so that what comes forth would be stronger, deeper, and completely undeniable. Resurrection doesn't just bring things back to life. It brings them back with greater glory. Lazarus didn't walk out the same man. He walked out with a testimony no one could argue. And your resurrection moment is going to silence every voice of doubt. The people who thought it was over are going to have to watch what God brings out of your grave. So don't fear the quiet. Don't curse the waiting. Don't assume the silence means he's done. He's the God who remembers, the God who restores, the God who revives. Even when it's dark, even when it's buried, he has not forgotten you. You're not stuck. You're not abandoned. You're not done. You're just planted. And resurrection is already on the way. There are attacks you didn't see coming, battles that nearly broke you. Some of you were hit so hard, so deep, that you question not just your purpose, but your survival. You faced trauma that wounded your soul, betrayal that shattered your trust, depression that wrapped itself around your mind like a storm. And yet you're still standing. You're still breathing. You're still here. That's not just survival. That's divine reversal in motion. What the enemy sent to destroy you, God is going to use to anoint you. What was meant to bury you will build the very platform from which you preach. The thing that nearly killed you is going to become the loudest sermon your life will ever declare. Not with a microphone, not from a stage, but from the way you walk, the way you worship, the way you war in prayer. The devil doesn't attack what he's not threatened by. The enemy came after you not because you were weak, but because you carry weight. You carry something eternal, something that can't be duplicated, silenced, or shut down. Hell knew your potential before you did. That's why the assault started so early. That's why the warfare has been so intense. But what Satan didn't calculate was that every hit, every heartbreak, every tear was planting something deeper in you. Look at Job. He lost everything, his wealth, his family, his health. It looked like God had abandoned him. But the Bible says Job never cursed God. He wrestled, but he remained. And in the end, God reversed the narrative. He restored double. But more than that, Job's story became a testimony for generations. We don't quote Job because of his success. We quote him because he survived what tried to kill him. That's what's happening with you. You're stepping into a season where your scars are about to speak. You don't have to pretend you've never been through anything. You don't have to hide the pain anymore because your testimony is soaked in power. God doesn't just want to heal you. He wants to release others through you. There's a prophetic anointing on people who've been through the fire and didn't lose their faith. Your story is going to shatter shame. Your past is going to become a weapon of light. You see, the enemy wanted to make you a victim, but God is making you a voice. The addiction, the abortion, the affair, the anxiety, it doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you because only the delivered can declare deliverance. Think about Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times publicly, shamefully. But after restoration, Peter didn't get disqualified. He got upgraded. He preached the first sermon at Pentecost, and thousands were saved. What tried to kill his calling, his failure, ended up fueling his fire. Divine reversal was in motion. That's your story too. Your low point is going to become someone else's launching pad. Your wilderness is going to water dry places in others. And the enemy who once mocked you is going to witness your miracle. Because when God reverses a thing, he does it openly. He doesn't just deliver you in secret. He prepares a table for you in the presence of your enemies. You're not just going to come out of this. You're going to come out with oil, with wisdom, with authority, with a roar that shakes atmospheres. You'll preach without saying a word. People will look at your life and say, if God did it for them, he can do it for me. The pain made you real. The loss made you hungry. The fight made you bold. That's why your voice is different now. That's why your prayer has weight. That's why your worship cracks open atmospheres. Because it was birthed in a battlefield. And God is taking what was meant to destroy you and turning it into a declaration of his glory. You may not have chosen the warfare, but you carry the evidence of a warrior. And now heaven is shifting your role. You're no longer just a survivor. You're a speaker of life. You're a carrier of breakthrough. You are the living proof of divine reversal. Hell tried to shut you up, but now your life is about to shout. You were hit, but not held back. You were wounded, but not wasted. You were broken, but not buried. And now, what tried to kill you will preach through you. So don't be ashamed of the scars. Don't hide the places where you've been hit, because those very wounds are the evidence that you made it. You were not destroyed. You were developed. The fire didn't consume you. It refined you. And now you don't just carry a story, you carry resurrection power. The attack didn't win. The enemy didn't write your ending. God did. And he's not just bringing you out. He's raising you up. You are becoming the voice hell tried to silence, the testimony the enemy hoped would never rise, the miracle no one saw coming. So go ahead. Let your life preach. Let your scars speak. Let your past prophecy. Because what tried to kill you is now your platform of power. This is divine reversal in motion, and it starts with you.